A man of violence, a brutal conqueror, he was oddly welcoming and tolerant to all religions. He founded and ruled one of the largest empires that we have ever known. This is Genghis Khan. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really does make a massive difference. If you're coming back, welcome back. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into this. Born Temujin somewhere on the steppes of Asia in 1165. He was born holding a clot of blood, and this blood clot was a sign that he would do great things in the future. The world he was born into was completely divided. The Mongols were a bunch of tribes that weren't unified. They were warring against each other, and they absolutely hated each other. The land that he was born into was known as the barbaric wilderness by the Chinese. It was cold, it was flat, but then there were random mountains. The Chinese even built a great wall to keep the heathens out. Genghis's early years were rocky, to say the least. His mother was abducted by his father from another tribe. Polygamy was encouraged, so he had multiple mother figures. He had 3 brothers, 1 sister, and 2 half-brothers. Where did he fit in? We do know that his early life consisted mainly of him learning to hunt, riding on the plains, following his nomadic tribe around who were looking for better pastures for their sheep. As he grew, his bravery and strength were noted, as was the fact that he was noted as an introvert. He didn't like the opinions of other people. And by the age of 9, his father had organized an arranged marriage for him in another tribe to a little girl called Berta. His father took him to this new tribe to meet Berta and left him there. Genghis's father then went back to his family. On his way back, he met a group of Tartars who gave him food and found them to be welcoming, but they poisoned him. When Genghis found out, he left his new tribe where Berta was and tried to find his family. He finally did, but when he did, he realized that they were deserted by their tribe. With only Genghis's mother being the adult in the family, there was constant fighting between the 3 brothers and the 2 stepbrothers. One day Genghis was fishing. He caught a fish, but his stepbrother took it away from him. Without hesitation, Genghis got his bow and arrow and killed his stepbrother. This is where we can see the true ruthlessness come out for the first time. Genghis grew stronger and stronger, and even though he wasn't the oldest brother, by the age of 15 he had become the natural leader of the family. His old tribe had caught wind of this boy Genghis, and so they decided to go and kidnap him in the dead of night. He escaped and stayed in the wilderness for 12 days, but was recaptured and finally escaped again, now in freedom. At the age of 16, he went back to his wife Berta, and his father-in-law was so happy to see him, he made him an ornate jacket. Genghis took this jacket and went to a chieftain called Togrul, and he bribed him. He bought an alliance with Togrul, and this meant that he could create a clan of his own. News of this new clan got out, and a group called the Merka decided to go and raid them, stealing all their women, including Genghis's wife Berta. Togrul and Genghis formed this horde of 5,000 cavalry and went and decimated the Merkas. Berta, Genghis's wife, was found, but she had been raped multiple times. Months later, she gave birth, but we don't know if this is the child of Genghis Khan or Merkan rapist. After the Merkan decimation, Genghis's power really increased. He became famous, and he even met up with his old friend, a childhood friend called Jamuka from another tribe. The 2 of them became blood brothers. They were inseparable, both day and night. This was until Genghis's clan and Jamuka's clan were riding together. Jamuka pulled off to one side, but Genghis continued to ride. After a mile, he noticed that his friend had pulled off. He looked back and saw most of Jamuka's clan had followed him. Genghis's tribe had doubled in size. Genghis really liked this feeling of power, so he decided to go raiding against enemy tribes, and he gave them a choice. Either join me or die. No matter what, we're taking your woman. When he did this, he gained a reputation that's very well deserved. He was absolutely, horrifically brutal. So much so that he would decimate tribes so that the surrounding tribes would simply give up as soon as they saw Genghis Khan coming their way, just to keep their lives. By his mid-20s, he had unified most of the warring tribes into one tribe, through brutality, of course. But there was one tribe who hadn't joined him. His old boyhood friend, Jamuka. One day, Genghis's tribe was riding along, and Jamuka's tribe was riding along. Out of the blue, they met. One of Genghis's men killed Jamuka's men by mistake. Jamuka was enraged and he set out to attack this much larger tribe that Genghis headed. And he captured many of their chieftains, taking them back and torturing them in his camp, and eventually executing them by boiling them. Genghis was humiliated by this defeat, and he realized that his tribe needed to become harder. So he hardened his warriors up, taught them special skills, and at the end of this training period, his army could travel 17 miles per day. News of this super army spread beyond the borders of Mongolia. The Qin Emperor of China heard about them, and he sent an envoy asking them if they would like to join forces against a common enemy, the Tatars. These were the group of people who poisoned Genghis's father. So Genghis accepted the invitation. He went off to China and quickly defeated the Tatars. He returned to Mongolia, and his old friend Jamuka attacked him immediately. After 3 battles, Genghis, with his now strengthened army, defeated Jamuka's army. But Jamuka himself escaped, and he went to another powerful tribe called the Nemirs in the north of Mongolia. Genghis then formed an army, and he headed a cavalry of 80,000. He set off to decimate this tribe in the north. But Jamuka escaped once more, and he headed up into the mountains with a small group. But the small group would betray him. They tied Jamuka up and carried him to Genghis's camp. Genghis was shocked by this disloyalty of the Jamukan group, so he executed them all in front of Jamuka. He gave Jamuka a pardon, but Jamuka rejected it, so he was suffocated in a carpet. Genghis was unable to watch, even though he spent most of his life killing. He couldn't watch the death of his oldest friend and oldest enemy, apparently being brought to tears. After this episode, he had the strongest army on the steppes and ruled around 2 million people, but this wasn't enough for him. He was power hungry. He set out to any other tribe that hadn't bent to his will and conquered them. Here, he increased his fame as a tactician and his ability to handpick generals which would unify all of these previous warring tribes in Mongolia, making them the Great Khan, the supreme ruler in 1206. By now, his wife Berta had bore him 4 sons, and he had given rulership to these 4 sons. But 4 sons wasn't enough for him. He gathered a harem of over 1,000 women, and today 16 million male individuals can trace their lineage to Genghis Khan. After laying with so many women, he must have gotten tired, and in his dreams, he saw himself riding constantly, conquering lands that went on forever. He took this as a prophecy and turned his eyes to the southern border with China. He, along with his generals, planned an invasion in 1206. But there was a different kingdom in their way, a kingdom that was built on trade, the Assyria, and in only 2 years, he conquered an entire kingdom. Now he was on the border with the Great Wall and sent an envoy to his old ally, the Qin. The Qin were suspicious, and they killed the envoy. Genghis went into his tent and fasted for 3 days. Finally, he came out and declared that it was time to act and dominate the Qin. With his 40,000 cavalry, he scaled the Great Wall of China. The ground would shake when they would ride, and he quickly started to conquer village after village. His brutality became infamous here. He captured women and children and used them as human shields. After 2 years of brutal campaign, he finally reached the modern-day city of Beijing, which was the Qin capital city. He sieged the city for another year, killing thousands in his wake. Finally, he subjugated the emperor and left back for Mongolia. He grew bored with Mongolia, and he looked to his western border with the Kyrgyz Islamic Empire, one on the edge of Europe. He respected all religions and saw the Shah of the Kyrgyz as a great ruler, so he wanted peace with him. After peace had been found, he had sent a caravan through the Kyrgyz Empire, but they were attacked by Islamic warriors. Genghis was furious with this, and he sent another group, telling them, go directly to the Shah himself, but they were killed on the way. This enraged Genghis, and with some 200,000 cavalry, he set out to find vengeance against the Shah. He battled him, and finally, after years of warring, he got an empire that would stretch from the Yellow Sea in the east to the Caspian Sea in the west. Before going back to his homeland on the steppes, he named his son Ugadei as his heir, but his empire had grown so enormously large that it became unruly, and in 1226 there was an uprising. When trying to deal with this, he rode to his generals, going to meet an army of 108,000 cavalry, but he fell off his horse, suffering serious injuries, which would eventually worsen, and by August the 18th or the 25th, 1227, he died at the very height of his powers. Genghis and his sons set out to gain more land in just 25 years than the Roman Empire did in 400 years. He was the founder of the largest connected land empire the world has ever known. His grandson, Kublai, would grow the empire even more, finally ruling 2 continents. Through truly horrific violence, Genghis Khan brought stability to the steppes for the first time, making a small tribe a superpower of its day, creating a trade route that would connect the East and the West, called the Silk Road. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you haven't. The more you know.